The notification light on my phone blinked blue at 2:17 a.m., cutting through the darkness of our bedroom like a tiny lighthouse warning of incoming storms. I should have rolled over and ignored it. Should have let whatever digital validation my wife Tessa was collecting in her sleep remain undisturbed until morning. Instead, I reached for the device with the same instinct that had made me a successful forensic accountant, the compulsion to examine every detail, no matter how small. Blessed with the perfect husband. 15 years, and he still brings me coffee in bed every morning. The post had 847 likes already. At 2 a.m., I screenshot it before setting the phone back down, though I couldn't say why. Maybe it was professional habit. Maybe it was the way something felt off about the timing, the phrasing, the performative nature of it all. Tessa stirred beside me, her auburn hair spilled across the pillow like she was posing for one of her wellness coaching photos. Even in sleep, she looked curated. Perfect, ready for the camera that seemed to follow her everywhere these days. I padded downstairs to the kitchen, muscle memory guiding me through the familiar routine: grind the beans, heat the water, pour it into the Zummer One husband mug she'd bought me last Christmas. The irony of drinking from it while reading her post about my coffee-bringing perfection wasn't lost on me. 15 years of marriage had taught me to appreciate irony. Sometimes it was the only thing that kept me sane. The laptop sat open on the kitchen counter, its screen dark but still warm. Tessa must have forgotten to close it after her late-night social media session. Another habit I'd noticed lately: the secretive typing, the quick minimizing of windows when I walked into a room, the phone always face down on the table during dinner. I touched the trackpad and the screen blazed to life, still logged into her Facebook Messenger. The conversation thread at the top was with Zane Marinor, her business partner, from the wellness coaching company where she'd been working for the past 8 months. God, Rowan made such a scene at dinner tonight, complaining about the credit card bill like he's some kind of financial genius. I swear marrying him was the biggest mistake of my life. He's like an anchor dragging down any chance I have at a real life. The timestamp showed 11:43 p.m., less than 3 hours before she'd posted about being blessed with the perfect husband. I scrolled up. The conversation went back months. Zane, I can't take much more of this. He's so boring. Last night he wanted to watch some documentary about accounting fraud. I mean, who does that? Sometimes I look at him and wonder what I was thinking. Baby, you know you deserve better. A woman like you, with your energy and passion, you're wasting away in that suburban prison. The worst part is how he thinks he's being romantic, bringing me coffee, leaving little notes. It's suffocating, like being married to a golden retriever. My hand trembled slightly as I scrolled further. 3 months of messages. 3 months of my wife telling another man how much she despised me, how trapped she felt, how eager she was to escape our marriage. The same 3 months she'd been posting increasingly frequent updates about our perfect relationship. I've been thinking about what you said, about making a clean break. The kids are old enough now. Addie's 17, Jonah's 14. They'd understand eventually. I told you, I've got everything figured out. The LLC is set up, the accounts are ready. Once we get enough saved up, we can disappear together. Start fresh somewhere warm. What about Rowan? He'll fight the divorce. Let him try. By the time he realizes what's happening, we'll be long gone. Besides, what's he going to do? Bore us to submission with spreadsheets? I screenshot each message methodically, my forensic training taking over. Evidence preservation, chain of custody. The same skills that had helped me uncover a $2.3 million embezzlement scheme at my last firm were now being applied to my own marriage. The coffee had gone cold in my hands, but I barely noticed. I was too busy discovering that my wife of 15 years had been planning her exit strategy with the precision of a military operation. Bank account numbers, travel plans, even a timeline. They were planning to leave right after our anniversary next month. The irony is perfect, one message read. He'll probably plan some romantic getaway for our anniversary, and I'll be planning my escape. Sometimes I almost feel sorry for him. Almost. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark kitchen, surrounded by the detritus of our shared life. Addie's college brochures stacked on the counter. Jonah's soccer schedule magneted to the refrigerator. The family photo from last Christmas, all 4 of us smiling like we meant it. My phone buzzed. Another notification. Tessa's post had crossed 900 likes. I opened my own Facebook app and created a new post. I uploaded 2 screenshots side by side, her blessed with the perfect husband post and the message calling our marriage her biggest mistake. Which one is the truth? I typed. Then I hit share. The response was immediate. Comments started flooding in before I'd even set the phone down. Her sister Michelle was first. Tessa, what is this? Then her mother. Rowan, please call me. Then friends, neighbors, coworkers, all watching our private life implode in real time. Upstairs, I heard Tessa's phone start buzzing, then buzzing again and again. I poured myself a fresh cup of coffee and waited for the storm to break. Rowan, Rowan. Tessa's voice cracked like a whip from upstairs. What did you do? I took a slow sip of coffee and checked my phone. The post had 127 comments and 89 shares in the 20 minutes since I'd published it. The notification count was climbing so fast the numbers blurred together. Her footsteps thundered down the stairs. Tessa appeared in the kitchen doorway wearing the silk pajamas I'd bought her for Valentine's Day, her face flushed with panic and rage. Her phone was clutched in her hand like a weapon. You psycho! You absolute psycho! How could you do this to me? Do what? I kept my voice level, professional. The same tone I used when presenting evidence to corporate boards. Share the truth? You went through my private messages. You left your laptop open. I gestured to the counter. Right there, screen unlocked, conversation visible. I'd say that makes it pretty public. She lunged for the laptop, fingers flying over the keys. I'm deleting everything. This is insane. You're insane. Too late. I held up my phone. Already archived. Every message, every photo, every plan you and Zane cooked up. Funny thing about screenshots? They're permanent. Tessa's face went white. She sank into one of the kitchen chairs, her phone still buzzing incessantly in her hand. Rowan, please. We can talk about this. Work something out. Like you and Zane worked out your exit strategy. It wasn't serious. We were just venting. 3 months of venting? Bank account numbers, travel arrangements? That's some pretty detailed venting, Tessa. Her phone rang. The display showed her mother's contact photo, a stern-faced woman who'd never particularly liked me but had always maintained a polite facade. Tessa declined the call. My family is going crazy, she whispered. My friends are calling, texting. My boss probably saw it. This is going to ruin everything. Everything was already ruined. I just made it visible. The front door opened and Addie walked in, still wearing her Starbucks uniform from her evening shift. Our 17-year-old daughter had inherited Tessa's auburn hair, but my analytical mind. She took one look at us, me sitting calmly with my coffee, Tessa hunched over her buzzing phone, and raised an eyebrow. Let me guess. Mom's Instagram life collided with reality again? Addie, honey, go to your room, Tessa said without looking up. Your father and I need to talk. Actually, I think Addie should hear this. I turned to our daughter. Your mother has been planning to leave us. Her and her business partner Zane have been setting up new bank accounts, making travel plans, calling our marriage a mistake. Addie's expression didn't change. Yeah, I figured. Tessa's head snapped up. What do you mean, you figured? Mom, you've been acting weird for months. Secretive phone calls, staying late at work, taking selfies in the bathroom and then posting them like you were somewhere else. Plus, Zane's been liking every single one of your posts within minutes. It's not exactly subtle. You don't understand. I understand that Dad brings you coffee every morning, and you've been complaining about it to another man. Addie's voice carried the particular cruelty that only teenagers can master. I understand that you post about being grateful while planning to abandon your family. I understand that you're a hypocrite. Tessa started crying then, the kind of ugly, desperate sobs that ruined makeup and shattered, carefully constructed facades. But I felt nothing. No sympathy, no urge to comfort her. 15 years of conditioning had been erased by 3 months of brutal honesty. My phone rang, unknown number. Mr. Carrick, this is Alyssa Marinor, Zane's wife. I think we need to talk. I stepped onto the back deck, leaving Tessa sobbing at the kitchen table while Addie watched with the detached fascination of a scientist observing a failed experiment. Mrs. Marinor, I assume you've seen the post? I had no idea. Her voice was tight with controlled emotion. No idea about any of it. The messages, the plans, the bank accounts. I've been married to a stranger. Join the club? Can we meet? Tomorrow morning? I think there are things you need to know about my husband, about what he's been doing. Such as? He's done this before. The wellness coaching company, the LLC, the disappearing act. This is his pattern. I found records going back 3 years. He's been running the same scam on lonely housewives across New England. The pieces clicked into place with the satisfying precision of a well-balanced equation. Zane hadn't fallen for Tessa's charms. He'd targeted her, identified her as a mark, played her insecurities and vanity like a virtuoso. Denny's on Route 1, I said. 9 a.m. Mr. Carrick? I'm sorry. About all of it. Don't be sorry. Be ready to help me burn them down. I ended the call and walked back inside. Tessa had stopped crying and was frantically typing responses to the flood of comments on my post. Damage control, crisis management, all the skills she'd learned from her wellness coaching seminars, now deployed to save her own reputation. "Who was that?" she asked without looking up. "Zane's wife. Turns out you're not his first victim." Tessa's fingers froze over the screen. "What do you mean?" "I mean your soulmate is a professional con artist, and you're just his latest mark." For the first time since this whole nightmare began, I smiled. The Denny's on Route 1 smelled like burnt coffee and broken dreams at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. Alyssa Marinor sat in a corner booth, a manila folder thick with documents spread before her like tarot cards predicting disaster. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 35, with the kind of tired prettiness that comes from years of disappointment. "Thank you for coming," she said as I slid into the booth across from her. "I wasn't sure you would." "I'm a forensic accountant, Mrs. Marinor. Evidence is my religion." She pushed a photograph across the table. Zane with a blonde woman, both of them grinning on what looked like a tropical beach. "That's Rebecca Thornton from Hartford, Zane's business partner from 2019 to 2021. Married, 2 kids, husband traveling for work constantly." I studied the photo. Same pose, same predatory smile that Zane wore in his pictures with Tessa. What happened to her? Zane convinced her to invest her kids' college funds in his fitness empire, $43,000. When the business folded, he disappeared with the money and Rebecca's marriage imploded. She's working 2 jobs now, trying to rebuild. Alyssa spread out more photos, more documents. A pattern emerged with mathematical precision. Vulnerable married women, usually with absent or inattentive husbands. Zane would position himself as their business partner, confidant, eventually their escape route. The setup was always the same. Investment opportunities, LLC formations, promises of a new life together. The ending was always the same, too. Zane would vanish with whatever money he could extract, leaving destruction in his wake. "How many?" I asked. 7 that I can prove, probably more." She pulled out a thick stack of bank statements. "He's been using our joint account as a clearinghouse. Money comes in from his marks, gets transferred to offshore accounts, then disappears. I've been tracking it for months." "Why didn't you leave him?" "I tried. He threatened to destroy my credit, claim I was complicit in the fraud, said he'd make sure I lost my nursing license." She laughed bitterly. "Turns out being married to a sociopath gives you some interesting legal vulnerabilities." I photographed every document with my phone, my mind already organizing the evidence into prosecutable categories. Wire fraud, identity theft, racketeering if we could prove the pattern across state lines. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "Help me destroy him. Completely. I want him in prison, and I want every one of his victims to get justice." "And Tessa?" "Your wife is a victim too, Mr. Carrick. A willing one maybe, but still a victim. Zane played her insecurities like a symphony, made her feel special, chosen, worthy of something better than suburban mediocrity." I thought about the messages I'd read, the casual cruelty of Tessa's words about our marriage, our life together. She made her choices. Yes, she did. But Zane made his choices too, and his choices have been hurting people for years. I left Denny's with a flash drive containing 3 years of evidence and a plan that would have made my forensic accounting professors proud. Alyssa had given me everything I needed to destroy Zane Marinor's operation completely. The question was whether I wanted to save Tessa from the wreckage or let her burn with him. My phone buzzed as I pulled into our driveway. Text from Tessa. "Please come home. We need to talk. I'm sorry." I found her in the living room, surrounded by printed screenshots of her own social media posts. She'd been trying to construct a narrative, a way to explain away the contradiction between her public persona and private reality. "I've been thinking," she said without looking up. "Maybe we can fix this, get counseling, work through our problems." "Which problems are those, Tessa? The problem where you've been planning to abandon our family? The problem where you've been mocking our marriage to another man? Or the problem where you've been helping that man commit fraud?" Her head snapped up. "What do you mean, fraud?" I sat down across from her and opened my laptop. "Zane's been running a con game, sweetheart. You're victim number 7, maybe 8 if we count the woman in Portland he was working before he found you." I showed her the photos, the bank records, the pattern of destroyed marriages and stolen money. Watched her face cycle through disbelief, anger, and finally a crushing humiliation that almost made me feel sorry for her. "He said I was special," she whispered. "You were special, specially selected, specially targeted, specially manipulated. The business plans, the LLC, all those meetings, all part of the setup. He's been draining our joint accounts through fake invoices and phantom contracts. $47,000 so far. Tessa buried her face in her hands. Oh God, what have I done? You've helped a career criminal steal from your own family. You've betrayed 15 years of marriage for a man who sees you as a paycheck with legs. You've taught our children that love is conditional and loyalty is negotiable. Rowan, please? But here's the interesting part. I leaned forward. I can make this all go away. The fraud charges, the public humiliation, the financial ruin. I can protect you from the consequences of your choices. Hope flickered in her eyes. How? You're going to help me destroy him. Completely. You're going to wear a wire, record conversations, gather evidence. You're going to be the perfect bait in the perfect trap. And if I refuse? I smiled the same smile I'd worn in countless boardrooms while presenting evidence of corporate malfeasance. Then you can explain to the FBI why you helped your boyfriend steal from 7 different families. I'm sure they'll be very understanding. Tessa stared at me for a long moment, seeing me clearly for perhaps the first time in our marriage. Not the boring, predictable husband she'd been mocking to her friends. Not the golden retriever she'd described to Zane. Something else entirely. Who are you? She whispered. I'm the perfect husband, I said. Just not the way you thought. The FBI field office in Portland looked exactly like every government building I'd ever entered. Beige walls, fluorescent lighting, and the particular smell of bureaucracy mixed with burnt coffee. Special Agent Jennifer Walsh reviewed my evidence with the methodical precision of someone who'd seen every variation of human greed and stupidity. This is impressive work, Mr. Carrick. Most civilians don't understand the importance of maintaining chain of custody. Most civilians aren't forensic accountants. True. She closed the folder containing Alyssa's documentation. The pattern is clear. Mr. Marinor has been operating an organized scheme to defraud married women across 3 states. With your wife's cooperation, we can build a case that puts him away for 15 to 20 years. Tessa sat beside me, pale and silent. She'd barely spoken during the drive to Portland, just stared out the window like a passenger on a plane watching the ground disappear beneath her. What exactly do you need me to do? She asked. Agent Walsh leaned forward. Continue the relationship as if nothing has changed. We'll provide you with recording equipment, a modified phone, a small transmitter that looks like jewelry. Your job is to get him talking about his previous victims, his methods, his financial arrangements. He's not stupid. If he suspects something, he won't suspect anything because you're going to give him exactly what he wants. Escalate the timeline. Tell him you can't wait any longer, that you need to leave immediately. Push him to move faster, take bigger risks. I watched Tessa process this, saw the moment she realized the full scope of what she'd gotten herself into. He'll want more money. If we're leaving sooner, he'll need more upfront capital. Perfect. We'll monitor every transaction, every conversation. When he takes the bait, we'll have him. Agent Walsh handed Tessa a small silver pendant. Recording device. Activated by pressing the clasp twice. Battery life is 8 hours, range is 50 yards. We'll have surveillance teams positioned nearby during your meetings. What about afterward? Tessa's voice was barely a whisper. When this is over, what happens to me? That depends on your level of cooperation and the extent of your involvement. If you're truly a victim who was manipulated into participating, the prosecutor might consider immunity in exchange for testimony. And if I'm not? Agent Walsh's expression didn't change. Then you'll be charged as an accessory to wire fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering. Federal charges carry federal sentences. We drove home in silence, the weight of what we'd set in motion settling between us like a third passenger. Tessa clutched the recording device in her palm, turning it over and over like a worry stone. I'm scared, she said as we pulled into our driveway. You should be. Rowan, I know you hate me right now. I don't hate you, Tessa. Hate requires passion. What I feel for you is much worse than hate. She looked at me with something approaching curiosity. What do you feel? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. That evening, I sat in my study listening to Tessa's phone conversation with Zane through the FBI's monitoring equipment. Agent Walsh had provided me with a receiver so I could hear the recordings in real time. Baby, I can't take this anymore. Tessa's voice was perfect. Desperate, needy. Exactly what Zane wanted to hear. Rowan's been suspicious since that social media thing. He's watching me constantly, checking my phone, asking questions about work. I told you this might happen. We need to stay calm. Stick to the plan. No, Zane, I can't wait until next month. I need to leave now, this week. A pause. I could practically hear Zane's mind working, calculating risks and opportunities. If we move that fast, we'll need more liquid capital. The accounts aren't fully established yet. How much more? Another 30,000, maybe 40, just to be safe. I can get it. Rowan has a retirement account, some investments. I can transfer the money tomorrow. Are you sure? If he notices. He won't notice until it's too late. By the time he figures out what happened, we'll be gone. I almost admired the performance. Tessa had found her calling as an actress, playing the role of the desperate housewife with Academy Award conviction. The irony wasn't lost on me. She was finally being honest about wanting to destroy our marriage, even if everything else was a lie. The conversation continued for another 20 minutes, Zane coaching her on wire transfers and account numbers while FBI technicians recorded every word. By the time they hung up, we had enough evidence to charge him with conspiracy to commit fraud. But Agent Walsh had been clear. They wanted everything, every victim, every scam, every dollar he'd stolen, which meant the operation would continue until Zane felt safe enough to reveal the full scope of his criminal enterprise. I poured myself a scotch and opened my laptop to review our financial accounts. Tessa would need to actually transfer some money to maintain credibility, not the full amount she'd promised. The FBI would provide most of that through a sting account, but enough to convince Zane that she was fully committed to their plan. $47,000. That's how much my marriage was worth to my wife. Less than the cost of a luxury car, more than a decent vacation. Somewhere between meaningful and meaningless, just like everything else about our relationship. I heard Tessa's footsteps on the stairs, then the soft click of our bedroom door closing. Tomorrow she would betray the man she'd been planning to betray me with. The perfect symmetry of it was almost poetic. My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. This is Alyssa. How did it go? Phase 1 complete. He took the bait. Good. I want to be there when they arrest him. Why? Because I want to see his face when he realizes that all his victims finally found each other. I finished my scotch and closed the laptop. Tomorrow, Tessa would begin the final act of our marriage by destroying the man she'd chosen over me. The fact that she was doing it to save herself rather than our family was just another layer of irony in a situation already rich with contradiction. But irony, I'd learned, was a luxury I could no longer afford. Tomorrow was about justice. Cold, methodical, inevitable justice. The parking lot of the Riverside Inn looked like a movie set for a low-budget thriller. FBI surveillance vans disguised as delivery trucks. Agents posing as maintenance workers. Technology that could record a whispered conversation from 50 yards away. I sat in my car at the edge of the lot, watching Tessa walk toward the hotel entrance with the mechanical precision of someone following a script. The silver pendant recording device caught the afternoon sunlight as she moved, a tiny beacon broadcasting her betrayal to a dozen federal agents. Target approaching the building, Agent Walsh's voice crackled through my earpiece. All units maintain position. Zane was already inside. Room 237, probably pacing and checking his phone every 30 seconds. According to the FBI's psychological profile, he'd be nervous but confident. Men like Zane always believed they were smarter than everyone else right up until the moment the handcuffs clicked shut. Audio check, came Walsh's voice. Tessa's response was clear and strong. Testing, testing. Can you hear me? Perfect. Remember, get him talking about the other women, the money transfers, anything that establishes pattern and intent. We need him to incriminate himself completely. I watched my wife of 15 years disappear into the hotel and felt nothing. No jealousy, no concern for her safety, no residual affection, just the cold satisfaction of watching a complex plan execute with mechanical precision. My phone buzzed. Text from Addie. Where are you? Jonah has a soccer game at 4. I'd forgotten. In the middle of orchestrating the destruction of my marriage, I'd forgotten about my son's soccer game. The banality of it was almost surreal. Running late. Be there soon, I texted back. Everything okay? Everything's fine. Just finishing some business. Through my earpiece, I heard Tessa's voice. Zane, it's me. Baby, you made it. Come here. The sound of a door closing, footsteps, the rustle of clothing, then Zane's voice, confident and predatory. Did you bring the account information? Right here. $40,000 transferred this morning. Everything you asked for. Perfect. You're amazing. You know that? Most women would never have the courage to take this kind of leap. Most women aren't trapped in marriages to men like Rowan. I almost laughed. Even while wearing a wire to destroy her lover, Tessa couldn't resist taking shots at me. Tell me about the others, she said, and I could hear the slight tremor in her voice. This was the crucial moment, the question that would either make or break the entire operation. What others? The other women you've helped. You mentioned that you'd done this before. helped unhappy wives escape their situations. A long pause. Too long. I held my breath, waiting to see if Zane's paranoia would overcome his ego. Why do you want to know about that? Because I need to know I'm not making a mistake. I need to know that this actually works, that we can really disappear and start over. Another pause, shorter this time. Then Zane's voice, warm with narcissistic pride. Baby, I've been perfecting this system for years. Rebecca in Hartford, Jennifer in Boston, Amanda in Burlington, all of them stuck in marriages to men who didn't appreciate what they had, all of them brave enough to take control of their lives. What happened to them? They're free, living new lives with new identities. Rebecca's running a yoga studio in Costa Rica. Jennifer opened a boutique in Sedona. They sent me thank you cards. The lies flowed so smoothly, I almost believed them myself. In reality, Rebecca was working double shifts as a nurse to pay back her children's college funds. Jennifer had lost her house and moved in with her parents. Amanda had attempted suicide and spent 3 months in psychiatric care. How much money did they invest in their freedom? Enough to make it real. $30,000, $45,000, $60,000. You can't start a new life on pocket change. And they all just left everything behind? That's what freedom costs, baby. Everything. Your old life, your old identity, your old relationships. But what you get in return is worth it. I could hear the excitement building in Zane's voice, the intoxication of reliving his conquests. He was giving the FBI everything they needed, painting himself as the architect of a multi-state fraud operation with mathematical precision. I brought something else, Tessa said, and I heard the rustle of papers. Rowan's retirement account information. There's another $120,000 in there. I can transfer it tomorrow. Jesus, Tessa, are you sure? I'm sure. I want to burn every bridge, leave nothing behind that could bring me back to this life. You're incredible. Absolutely incredible. The conversation continued for another 30 minutes, Zane detailing his methods, his previous victims, his plans for their future together. Every word was recorded, every admission cataloged, every lie documented for the federal prosecutors who would use them to destroy him. Finally, I heard the sound of a door opening. I have to go, Tessa said. Rowan thinks I'm at a wellness seminar. If I'm late, he'll start asking questions. Tomorrow night, same time. We'll finalize everything and make the transfers. I can't wait. Neither can I, baby. Neither can I. I watched Tessa emerge from the hotel, walking with the same mechanical precision as before. She climbed into her car and drove away without looking in my direction, playing her role to the end. Excellent work. Agent Walsh's voice came through my earpiece. We have everything we need. Tomorrow night, we take him down. I started my car and drove toward the soccer field, where my son was probably wondering why his father wasn't there to watch him play, where normal families gathered to cheer for their children and pretend that their marriages weren't elaborate performances designed to hide fundamental incompatibilities. By tomorrow night, Zane Marinor would be in federal custody. Tessa would be facing the consequences of her choices, and I would be free to figure out what came next for a man who had just spent a week learning that 15 years of marriage had been built on lies, manipulation, and casual cruelty. But first, I had a soccer game to attend. Because even in the middle of orchestrating the destruction of my wife's criminal conspiracy, some things remained sacred. The irony of it was perfect. The arrest went down exactly as Agent Walsh had planned. Zane Marinor, confident and predatory right up until the moment FBI agents kicked in the door of room 237, was now sitting in federal custody facing charges that would keep him imprisoned until his hair turned gray. I watched the news coverage from my living room while Tessa sat beside me, pale and silent. The reporter described it as a multi-state fraud operation targeting vulnerable married women, which was technically accurate, but missed the deeper truth. Zane hadn't just stolen money. He'd stolen hope, trust, the belief that someone could love these women enough to offer them escape from their ordinary lives. The defendant allegedly defrauded victims of over $300,000 across 7 separate incidents, the reporter continued. Federal prosecutors are calling it one of the most sophisticated romance scams they've encountered. Tessa flinched at the word scam. Even now, even after everything, part of her still wanted to believe that what she'd felt for Zane had been real. How long will he get? She asked. 15 to 20 years if he's convicted on all counts. Longer if they can prove racketeering. And me? That depends on the prosecutor. Agent Walsh thinks you'll get immunity in exchange for testimony, but there are no guarantees. My phone rang. Alyssa Marinor's name appeared on the screen. It's over, I said by way of greeting. I know. I watched them take him away in handcuffs. Her voice carried a satisfaction I recognized. The the cold pleasure of seeing justice delivered with mathematical precision. I wanted to thank you for everything. Thank Agent Walsh. She did the real work. No, you did the real work. You could have just divorced Tessa and moved on. Instead, you made sure Zane couldn't hurt anyone else. I looked at my wife, who was staring at the television with the hollow expression of someone watching their life implode in real time. Justice isn't always personal. Sometimes it is. I filed for divorce this morning. Zane can fight it from prison. After I hung up, Tessa and I sat in silence while the news moved on to other stories. Sports scores, weather forecasts, the mundane details of a world that had continued spinning while our marriage collapsed into federal evidence. What happens now? Tessa asked. Now you testify. You help the prosecutors convict the man you were planning to run away with. You explain to a jury how he manipulated you into betraying your family. I meant with us? I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in days. 15 years of marriage had carved lines around her eyes, softened the sharp angles of her face, given her the particular beauty that comes from shared history. But I felt nothing. No affection, no anger, no regret, just the empty space where love used to live. There is no us, Tessa. There hasn't been for months, maybe years. The only difference is that now we're both honest about it. We could try counseling. You called our marriage a mistake. You mocked our intimacy to another man. You planned to steal our children's college funds to finance your escape. What exactly would we counsel? She started crying then, the ugly, desperate sobs of someone who had finally run out of options. But I felt nothing. The man who would have comforted her, who would have brought her tissues and spoken soft words of reassurance, had been murdered by her own messages. What remained was someone else entirely. I'm filing for divorce, I said. The prenup's infidelity clause means you get nothing from the marital assets. The house, the retirement accounts, the investments, all of it stays with me and the kids. Rowan, please. You can fight it if you want. Spend money you don't have on lawyers who will tell you exactly what I'm telling you now. The evidence is overwhelming. Your own words, your own plans, your own choices. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the suburban street where we'd built our life together. Normal houses filled with normal families, all of them probably harboring their own secrets and betrayals and quiet desperations. I've already found you an apartment, I continued. 1 bedroom, downtown, close to the courthouse for when you need to testify. First month's rent is paid. After that, you're on your own. What about the kids? Addie's 18 in 3 months. She can make her own choices about contact. Jonah will stay with me, but you can see him on weekends if he wants. If he wants? I'm not going to force our son to spend time with someone who was planning to abandon him. That's his decision to make. Tessa cried harder, but I felt nothing. Sympathy was a luxury I could no longer afford. I loved you, she whispered. No, you didn't. You loved the idea of me. The perfect husband for your perfect social media life. But when the cameras stopped rolling, when it was just us in the quiet moments, you felt trapped, suffocated, bored. That's not true. It's your truth, Tessa, your own words. I'm just finally listening to them. I walked upstairs to our bedroom and began packing her clothes into suitcases. 15 years of shared closet space reduced to 3 bags and a box of jewelry, the wedding dress she'd never worn again, the negligee from our honeymoon, the photo of us from our first anniversary, both of us young and stupid and convinced that love was enough to overcome anything. When I came back downstairs, Tessa was sitting exactly where I'd left her, staring at her hands like they belonged to someone else. Your ride will be here in an hour, I said, setting the suitcases by the door. I've arranged for a moving company to get the rest of your things next week. Rowan. Goodbye, Tessa. I walked back upstairs and closed the door to my study. Through the window, I could see our neighbors going about their evening routines, walking dogs, checking mailboxes, living their ordinary lives in their ordinary marriages. An hour later, I heard a car pull into the driveway. Footsteps on the porch, the sound of suitcases being loaded, a door closing, an engine starting, and then silence. And I opened my laptop and deleted Tessa's contact information from my phone, my email, my social media accounts. 15 years of marriage, erased with the methodical precision of a forensic accountant cleaning up a case file. Tomorrow, I would explain to my children why their mother was gone. Tomorrow, I would begin the process of rebuilding a life that had been constructed on lies and maintained through willful blindness. But tonight, I sat in the silence of my house and felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. The perfect husband had finally learned the truth about his perfect marriage. And the truth, as it turned out, was exactly what I'd always suspected. Sometimes the only way to save yourself is to let everything else burn.